Celebrations have included alcohol before Jesus turned water into wine. It's almost as if alcohol and celebrating are synonymous. Can you even have one without the other? I couldn't imagine having a Thanksgiving meal without wine, or Christmas Day without my dad's famous Bloody Marys, or New Year's Eve without a champagne toast. When I first became sober curious, I actually said, I'll just drink on celebrations. I took a couple weeks off here and there before deciding that I wanted to try to stay sober Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, almost 90 days. So this is in 2018. I felt like I needed a deadline where if I wanted to drink again, I could. And that having that end date would help me stay sober through the hard days. I did some research, and on average, most people, problem drinkers or not, increase their alcohol intake during the holidays. For me, this was because there were more events going on during the holidays. There were excuses to drink, and then the stress of it all. The issue with this is it's not only bad for your health, but it can lead to impaired, dangerous choices like drinking and driving, which increase over the holiday season. Today, I've stayed sober through 6 Thanksgivings, Christmases, and New Year's Eves. This includes events also like bachelorette parties, weddings, funerals, and more holidays than I can count. While this by no means makes me an expert, I do have way over 10,000 hours of sober time, which author of Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell, says is a 10,000 hour rule. He claims that the key to achieving world class expertise in any skill to a large extent is a matter of practicing the correct way for a total of around 10,000 hours. So I looked it up, and with 5.5 years of sobriety, I do have over 50,000 hours of sober time. But this includes sleeping. And I'm also not sure Malcolm's theory applies to sobriety, but every hour definitely adds up. So we're going to run with it, and we're going to talk about a few key components of being sober during the holidays. In today's episode, we're going to dive into what my drinking was like during the holidays prior to sobriety, the first time I celebrated a holiday sober, holidays after the first time sober, tips for staying sober during the holidays, and how I handle the holidays today after extended sobriety time. Let's dive in. What my drinking during the holidays was like prior to sobriety. During the holidays, I used to be so focused on filling my glass that I wasn't fully present for conversations with family members that I rarely got to see. In my 20s, pre kids, I remember I was hungover most Thanksgiving days because I was going out with friends the night before Thanksgiving. I'm not sure who can relate, but the Wall Street Journal even wrote about Blackout Wednesday. It's the unofficial name given to the Wednesday before Thanksgiving Thursday because it's such a big night of drinking. In my case, immediately after flying into town to see family the day before Thanksgiving, I barely said hi to my parents before meeting my friends to go bar hopping until they closed around 2 a.m. Thanksgiving Day, I would have a raging headache, barely able to wake up to eat food, let alone actually be helpful or make decent conversations with people, including my grandma. I didn't see a problem with this. Everyone my age was doing it, and I never got into trouble for it. And then I would start drinking all over again because the holiday made for a great excuse. I needed a little hair of the dog to get rid of my hangover. Christmas was also centered around alcohol in my family. Even as kids, my dad would make my siblings and I virgin Bloody Marys first thing in the morning, adding booze to them as we entered our teenage drinking years. We would then move on to mimosas with breakfast and have wine throughout the day. The entire holiday break was centered around alcohol, and I didn't even realize it because it's all I knew. I thought every family was celebrating this way, and society was really telling me the same story, with holiday advertisements and movies imparting the same messaging. The first thing people do when you arrive to a party is ask if you want a drink. I had not experienced a sober New Year's Eve since I was 15 before getting sober curious at age 33. I remember sneaking booze with friends in high school and going out to bars and clubs in New York City during college and cheersing my glass of champagne at midnight, even through breastfeeding my children. All of this is just really a glimpse of what my drinking was like prior to getting sober. I want to talk about the first time you celebrate a holiday sober. So, just like sex, your first time may not be all that pleasant. It's not easy to break a habit that's been going on for decades. And the first time, well, it feels like the first time. It's a little awkward and uncomfortable. So, family members might ask why you're not drinking. Friends might keep pushing because they're used to you continually filling your glass alongside them, or I know for me, I didn't yet feel comfortable in my own skin without a drink. Celebrations were really synonymous with alcohol for me. So the only time I was sober during the holidays was during my pregnancies. And even then, I might have a couple sips here and there, using the holiday as an excuse. My first extended break from alcohol started November 6th of 2018. At that point, I had about 3 weeks under my belt before Thanksgiving Day, which I thought would help, but I was becoming increasingly anxious leading up to the day. I have journal entries stating how nervous I was for that first sober holiday. I was so worried my friends and family would pry into why I wasn't drinking, and I was scared I would kind of cave and drink anyway. I had no tools or support at that time. I was the only one holding myself accountable. But I was determined that I had learned enough about the negative effects of alcohol to at least give it a shot. And the surprising truth was, once the day arrived, I wrote again in my journal and said how much easier it was than I thought it was going to be. I had planned my mocktail in advance. I enjoyed being present with my kids and family members. I ended up being more helpful in the kitchen. And I only got asked once if I wasn't drinking because my friend actually just wanted to know if I was pregnant again. But could I fault them? I had had 3 kids in 4 years at that point. Another pregnancy wouldn't have been that surprising. But all in all, holiday or not, I never regret not drinking the next day. And the day after Thanksgiving was no different. I was so proud of myself for making a goal and sticking to it. In hindsight, I can't believe I did it alone since I eventually did need group support. And today I attend AA meetings and I have a lot of sober friends who just get it, where I share my feelings of anxiousness before a holiday or any event that's coming up. And it helps kind of cut that anxiousness in half. But Thanksgiving of 2018, every other adult was drinking and I didn't partake. It was a miracle. That year, continuing my streak of giving up alcohol for the holidays, the upcoming parties in December leading up to Christmas felt very much the same. I hosted an ornament exchange party where my friends who came and attended expected me to have wine, so I provided it. I was like, I better not let them realize that I'm not drinking. Let me have all the booze here, fill their cups, and maybe they won't notice. I was a little antsy for the first like 30 minutes, but once everyone had their drink poured, I was actually the only one who cared what was in my glass. Everyone else was so focused on themselves or the conversations we were having. It made me realize that I could still laugh and converse without numbing my senses. And it was such a good feeling to let myself experience. If I had caved and just had a few, I never would have known how it felt not to drink through it. After the party, I actually sensed that I was going down the right path, but I kept just trusting my intuition and let it guide me to not drink through the next thing. It was really one day at a time at that point. So at my husband's holiday work event, I would ask for a club soda with a lime and a splash of cranberry so it looked like I was holding a cocktail. Again, no one cared what was in my glass. And I only had one close friend ask why I wasn't drinking, but I had an excuse prepared. I'm driving us home. Christmas break, my parents came to visit, and my dad was the biggest pusher of alcohol I knew. I later realized that this is just because he wanted everyone to be on the same level that he was. And I will say, like father, like daughter, my friends can attest that I was exactly the same way. Anytime someone walked into my house for a party, anytime I was at the bar, I would always offer another drink or say, "Why aren't you drinking? Have a cocktail." And so, also, for the first year ever, I hadn't had wine while wrapping Santa presents. And on Christmas Day, I woke up without a hangover for the first time in years. Before my parents came to visit, I did end up sharing with them I was taking a break from alcohol because I just blamed my broken foot. You can hear more of that story in episode 1. But my dad still tried to make me a Bloody Mary on the day of, and he offered me multiple mimosas. but I actually declined and I chose to stay present. And I made the day about my kids' joy. My husband at the time and my parents drank like usual. And so it gave me this chance to view what it looked like on the outside of the fishbowl. I was looking in, taking a glimpse, and their glazed and tired eyes did not look appealing. I realized I preferred the way I felt to the temporary buzz I was constantly trying to chase with another glass of booze all day. And then New Year's Eve wasn't much different. Friends and family wished I was drinking, but I had made it through the other holidays and wanted to start the year with extended sobriety time under my belt. My only issue was wondering whether or not I would ever drink again. I didn't have a good reason to start, but I also didn't feel like I had a good reason to stop either. I was still the only person I knew who didn't drink. I'll share in future episodes what happened next, but I stayed sober that New Year's Eve. So, what the holidays looked like after my first time sober. This is really my years 2 through now, upcoming on my 6 years of sobriety. I no longer look at holidays as different from any other day. I've been through enough sober holidays to know I continue to feel better when I choose not to drink alcohol. I no longer care what my excuse is. I no longer provide the booze for people. When people come to my parties, I always say, I'll provide everything, food, entertainment, but BYOB. That way they have what they want to drink and I have what I want to drink. But I also make sure I have mocktails for them, sparkling water, and plenty of desserts. I love being present to see where I can be of service now. This looks like me washing the dishes or playing with the kids instead of a midday nap. I also love seeing where God needs me. Sometimes I end up in the corner with the oldest person at the party, having this conversation that I never would have had if I was constantly at the bar or more worried about filling my cup. So, tips for staying sober during the holidays: BYOB, bring your own beverage, not booze. Choose what your favorite mocktail is. This can look like kombucha, tea. There's such great options now. I love hop water, and you can always mix your own mocktail. Have an excuse prepared. For a while, everyone just thought I was pregnant again, but I'm driving, I'm taking a break, I don't feel like it, are all great excuses. And if anyone questions your motive, it's likely they might be questioning their own drinking habits. Another tip is to drive yourself to the party. One of the best excuses, and it's cheaper than the booze and an Uber. Surround yourself with people that will support you. If you don't have this choice but to be around family that might be triggering or don't understand you, be prepared with a reason of your choice. Again, I have to drive is such a great excuse, but come up with something that's locked into your brain that you have immediately ready to say. You can also pre plan in these cases by upping your self care the week before the holiday. For me, this looks like walks in nature, meditation, exercise, making healthy eating choices. I'm always surprised at how much my food choices actually affect my mental health. I love the saying HALT: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. If you're in a situation and you're finding yourself increasingly antsy or irritable, ask yourself, are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? Also, if you do have a choice of who you get to spend your holidays with, surround yourself with supportive friends who don't care if you have a drink or not. If you're comfortable and your family is supportive, let them know beforehand that you won't be partaking in the booze. Add in that you can't wait to see and spend time with them. That's really what the holidays are about. Also, be aware that you may have to take breaks throughout the day, whether it might be heading to the bathroom or finding a quiet place to retreat during the party. I always have a prayer in my back pocket. Like there's this long form version of the Serenity Prayer, or I love the St. Francis prayer. It starts out with, Lord, make me a channel of thy peace. Where there is hatred, I may bring love. Or I even pray to God before or during the party. Something like, please remove the obsession for alcohol. I'm always surprised at how helpful it is to switch my mindset and get out of self. Another tip is to bundle up and take a walk around the block. This actually kills two birds with one stone. You get a break, but you're also maybe walking off that second helping of a Thanksgiving meal, like extra mashed potatoes or even second helpings of dessert. And speaking of dessert, eat dessert. I was never a sweets girl until I cut wine, and I replaced that craving for the sugar with actual sugar. And now I rarely ever skip dessert. I just went to a concert in Nashville and I treated myself to gelato right before we headed to the venue. Knowing that I already had my treat makes it easier not to treat myself to an alcoholic beverage. So, how I handle the holidays today after almost 6 years of sobriety is I ask myself, will it feel good to be there? I am an adult who gets to decide if traveling home for the holidays will be good for my mental health. This year, my brother is traveling in with his wife and their new baby. And I'm so excited to think about flying my kids across the country. I don't have to worry about craving booze on the airplane. And then I get to allow my kids to not only meet their new cousin, but also to spend time with their grandma and their great grandma and great aunts and uncles. For me, this is a very spiritual experience. It's not that I have to, it's that I get to show up and be present for family. And since stopping drinking, I no longer add to the family drama. I usually have a positive experience with each family member that I would not get if I were even a few glasses of wine deep. I now look at every interaction as a miracle, which A Course in Miracles defines as a change in perception. That's truly what I've had. Being able to remove alcohol from my life has changed my reality for the better. So, getting through those first holidays sober wasn't easy, but it was worth the shot. I gained greater clarity and the ability to see what breaking a habit for an extended period of time was like. I hope the stories and tips from today's episode were helpful. I want to disclose that I did eventually drink again after those first tries at the sober holidays because I didn't have tools for keeping my sobriety long term until I eventually decided to try Alcoholics Anonymous and I walked through the 12 steps with a sponsor. I do look forward to telling you more about that